destruction and people's houses and farms and environment damage, arrest and torture of men and women and even children, humiliation, protect and support the people under occupation. The responsibility for putting an end to this inhumane and shameful crisis, deprived of all human rights and human dignity. So, and no responsible government, very dangerous effect and consequences that this situation may carry on the regional and global peace and security. The situation that prevails in occupied Palestine today is both a clear example of regional and international desecuritization and a clear manifestation of war crime and genocide. Of Palestinian people. The Zionist regime is still committing massacre and genocide in Gaza. The situation that prevails in occupied Palestine today is both a clear example of regional and international desecuritization and a clear manifestation of war crime and genocide. The issue of Palestine, that is the 7-decade-long occupation of the land of an ancient people, the displacement of the majority of its native inhabitants, and suppression and humiliation of the population still living in Gaza and the West Bank, is not a Palestinian-Israeli issue, nor it is not an Arab-Israeli issue, or even a Muslim-Israeli issue. The issue of Palestine is issue of humanity and the entire international community. And therefore, all states and each and every person bears the responsibility for putting an end to this inhumane and shameful crisis. In this regard, I would like to openly share a few points regarding the ongoing developments which created the defensive operation of the Palestinian resistance against the Israeli occupation. First of all, what is happening in the occupied Palestine, and especially in Gaza, constitutes a source of deep concern, regret, and shame for humankind. The atrocities that are taking place are double injustice to a nation that has already been subjected to brutal occupation for 75 long years and has been deprived of all human rights and human dignity. No conscientious soul and no responsible government may remain indifferent to the heinous atrocities that are being perpetrated and the very dangerous effect and consequences that this situation may carry on the regional and global peace and security. For more than 7 decades now, a proud people has been deprived of its right to self-determination and other fundamental human rights, while its land and home have been under occupation. During these 7 decades, without the slightest regard for the laws and norms of international law, including international humanitarian law and human rights, and with the full backing and support of the United States of America, which has immunized the regime against any forms of accountability and punishment, the occupying Zionist regime has committed the most heinous of war crimes against humanity and the crime of genocide. the continuous usurpation of the lands of the original inhabitants of the region, of that region, and the expansion of Zionist settlements, massacre, destruction and people's houses and farms and environment damage, arrest and torture of men and women and even children, humiliation and insult to the dignity of the Palestinian nation, repeated desecration of holy premises of Islam, including Al-Aqsa Mosque, are but only a part of the atrocities committed by occupying regime against the Palestinian people. Secondly, the position of the Islamic Republic of Iran on supporting the right of Palestinian people to self-determination is clear and principled. Our position is a humanitarian moral position premised on the rules of international law and the United Nations Charter. The right to self-determination and respect for the fundamental rights of people under occupation are rudimentary rules of primarily rules of international law, which are explicitly recognized in the United Nations Charter. Respected audience, thirdly, the right of self-defense and strive for serving and restoring the right to self-determination are interdependent. The resistance of the Palestinian people in the face of occupation, the gross and continual violation of their human rights, and the desecration of the sanctities of the Muslim world by the occupying regime amount is the true sense of the word to their legitimate and lawful defense against oppression and aggression. The right to legitimate defense is an inherent right that is clearly recognized in the United Nations Charter and in international law. The Palestinian nation, as a nation that has been unjustly deprived of the fundamental right to determine its own destiny, does undoubtedly have the right to defend itself and resist occupation and aggression. Misleading projection does not change the fact that Al-Aqsa Storm operation symbolized the spontaneous and natural movement of the Palestinian people to defend their inherent rights and human dignity, and was an inevitable reaction to the occupation's endless cruelty, brutally, and aggression leveled against the innocent people of Palestine. Coming on to the next point, the crimes being committed by the occupying regime against the Palestinian people can by no means be justified. By no means the crime cannot be justified. Attempting to justify Israel's crime under the principle of self-defense is utterly rejected, be it from an international legal lens or from an ethical perspective. The principle of self-defense cannot be legally invoked in the framework of the equation between the occupying party and the people under occupation. According to international law, the occupying party has specific duties to protect and support the people under occupation. Hence, it cannot be that they commit to mass killing of the people and destruction of their property. My dear colleague, I strongly believe that resistance is the self-motivated and independent movement of nations to defend human dignity and the boundaries of their land against any occupation and invasion. One cannot allow the occupying party with all its evil might, all out support of the West to go uncontested as it tries to change the demographic of Palestine and to commit genocide and put others before a fate accomplished with, while at the same time expecting others to be spectators and ignore such atrocities. They prefer that people all over the world be silent against the crimes which Zionist regime is doing daily. The free-spirited people of the world shall not tolerate that. Lastly, the occupying regime has shown that its survival depends on the perpetuity of insecurity and its expansion. Restrained and responsible behavior and compliance with the rules and principles of international law cannot be expected of such an entity. Nevertheless, its supporters are expected to fulfill their responsibilities and contain this regime. Therefore, they need reconsider their approach soonest possible. Dear colleague, the Islamic Republic of Iran is aware of its responsibilities toward international peace and security, and at the same time, it will adhere to its fundamental and legitimate issue of supporting the legal and human rights of the Palestinian people to defend and resist occupation and aggression until the realization of their right to self-determination.
नेशनल दस्तक की आपसे गुजारिश है कि अगर इसको बचाना चाहते हैं तो नेशनल दस्तक को सब्सक्राइब करने के लिए रेड कलर के सब्सक्राइब बटन को दबाएं, फिर बेल आइकन की घंटी दबाएं। नेशनल दस्तक को बचाने के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हर खबर को शेयर करें, लाइक करें, कमेंट जरूर करें।